Mga binati ug minahal kong kaigsunang Sugboanon, maayong gabii kanatong tanan. Tonight, as the sun sets on this appointed day of endings and beginnings, we return to this grand yet familiar hall to meet again, as we did in times past, to perform this ritual of transition, of renewal, of change. Consider the long, unpredictable, sometimes impossible, or should I say, impassable road that brought us here tonight. 15 years ago, we gathered here on an evening such as this. And as your first woman governor, I spoke optimistically of an opportunity of a century, an era of unprecedented growth and progress that was well within reach, and the need to seize it together as one people. Outside this hall, however, on the ground, the realities hardly inspired such optimism. For we were a province deeply divided. In this capital, the executive and legislative branches were caught in gridlock, fighting a fractious turf war that had got us nowhere near a common agenda for the future. That conflict, however, was but a reflection of the wider, deeper divide that tore this province apart into tiny fiefdoms, defined by the narrow political interests of a few, wary of a provincial government that could endanger each of their precious domains. So divided were we politically that we soon ran in danger of being divided physically, geographically. For soon after that inaugural, 15 years ago, 3 Cebuano members of Congress filed 3 separate bills to split this province into 4, to create provinces out of their fiefdoms, to arrogate unto themselves all power, selling it under the shibboleth of more accessible and more responsive government. Not considerations of our 4th century history as a province, not our common heritage, not even the clearly disastrous economic consequences of this reckless bit of political adventurism could dissuade them. No argument, no reason could stop them. Only one face, one force could: the people. And the people spoke with one resounding voice in a show of unity they usually reserved only when a calamity struck or when their very existence was threatened. The Cebuanos spoke clearly and as one. No to Sugboak. And your leaders heard your message loud and clear. Soon, the executive and the legislative came together and pledged to work as one. In the cities and towns, mayors, vice mayors, councilors, barangay officials forged a unity never before known in Cebu political history. The cry, there can only be one Cebu. Cebu is one because we are one. It is the height of irony that in conspiring to divide Cebu, the proponents of Sugboak only succeeded in uniting the Cebuanos. The Cebuanos unanimously rejected the petty, selfish, divisive politics and embraced a hopeful unity to move this province forward. In 2007, challenged by the forces of division, we were re-elected with the greatest majority ever garnered in the political history of the province of Cebu. The proponents failed to see then what should have been clear all along, that one should never underestimate the intelligence of the Cebuanos and their capacity to see through all the insincerity, the empty platitudes, and the hypocrisy. United, Cebu seized that opportunity of a century, paving more provincial and barangay roads than at any other time in history, upgrading the last Bailey bridges to concrete, providing level 3 water systems to more households than ever before, electricity provided to the last sitios, helping towns and cities build their heritage parks, their centers for seniors, their rural health units, building more public elementary and high school classrooms than had ever been built by the provincial government in history, helping all barangays build their road systems and health centers while ensuring all barangay officials and workers against accidental death and injury, and our health and peace workers cash incentives for the first time. We empowered women by setting up livelihood programs in each barangay, providing both training and capital. We ensured farmers and fisherfolk, as well as their crops, livestock, and catch, to arm them against the challenges of climate change. We trained entrepreneurs in the countryside through the Obra Negosyo Escuela and the One Cebu Expo on how to package and market their products, as well as manage and grow their businesses. We helped school children from grade 1 pupils to high school seniors by giving them school supplies at the beginning of each school year. And at no other time was Cebu tourism as focused, as comprehensive, as sustained, and as successful as the years of the Suruy-Suruy Sugbo and the Pasigarbo sa Sugbo. By focusing and showcasing our culture, our rich heritage, and our people, we encouraged cities and towns to put up their own unique festivals, even as we brought tourism to the countryside, spreading its benefits beyond Metro Cebu. We encouraged community-based, ecologically conscious tourism to benefit communities not traditionally benefited by tourism, and to build a sustainable future for tourism in Cebu. Our LGUs, towns and cities, with their newfound pride in their place, their products, and their destinations, opened up to an admiring world as they never had before. Cebu had always been in the world map, but Cebu secured its place in the world stage by hosting the 12th ASEAN Summit at its own Cebu International Convention Center. And we sustained this international interest and attention by entering into the most number of sisterhood agreements ever with cities, provinces, and states throughout Asia, Europe, and the Americas. Indeed, before 2013, it had never been in doubt. Cebu was the #1 province in the entire country. We were #1 in assets, in total income, and in competitiveness. And despite our heavy investments in physical and human infrastructure, Cebu remained debt-free. But the forces of division would not rest. The new party in power in Malacanang saw that it was only by dividing us again that it stood a chance of capturing Cebu in 2013 for the benefit of one of its leaders who had been salivating at the prospect of becoming president in 2016. And so, 6.5 years ago, a full 6 months to the end of my third and final term as governor, I was forced out of this capital. It was not by the will of the people, nor by writ of the courts of law, but by the President's pen, initiated and implemented by this would-be presidentiable, and cheered on by the unelected who wished to take my place as governor without the consent of the governed. For weeks, while I sought relief from the courts, I was holed up here under siege by a boot-licking general, a boot-licking police general, and a battalion of his men. They turned this capital into a garrison. And day and night, this general threatened to use force and violence to remove me, this small thorn in a political party's provincial and ultimately national ambitions. And when they finally succeeded in boarding up the governor's office, padlocking the governor's entrance, and unleashing the general's forces and resources in the elections that came soon after, this province's fate was pretty much sealed. I would have wanted to say the rest is history, but I cannot, because it is not history. Today, we suffer still from the consequences of that power grab. From being the #1 province in the country, we plunged into a precipitous drop, reaching our lowest at number 45 in a field of 81 provinces. From being totally debt-free, our province is now burdened with a 1.5 billion debt. Our provincial roads are in such a sorry state of disrepair that Cebu's congressmen have had to allocate national funds to repair some of them. In some towns like Barili and Liloan, even the mayors have had to repair them out of their meager municipal funds. Our hospitals are a tragic comic study in chaos, an emergency case of mismanagement and inefficiency. We have provincial and district hospitals that are operating as glorified terminals, where patients, upon arrival, are just as quickly dispatched to Vicente Soto Memorial Medical Center or other private hospitals for lack of medicines and medical professionals to deal with cases. Whereas before, all cities, municipalities, and barangays, regardless of how they voted in the last elections, received projects from the Capitol. The past 6 years have made projects dependent on the color of your politics. And for an administration that projects itself as clean and corruption-free, we are, for the first time in the history of this capital, purchasing heavy equipment at more than 200% their actual price, and selling or attempting to sell provincial property at a floor price of less than 50% of their fair market value. And how does one reconcile the slogan, "Kalambuan sa matag sugbuanon," with a 1.5 billion loan to build a monstrosity that would eclipse and debase this heritage capital complex? Why build it in this city that does not contribute a single cent to the province's coffers and yet leave the burden of debt to the taxpayers of the province, all for a building that has absolutely no relevance to their lives or their livelihoods. I would like to think this here is the meaning of that monumental mandate we received in May. They ran on words, empty slogans in place of vision, false narratives of their purity in place of action, and character assassination in place of any kind of track record. We ran on what we had done and what we are still capable of doing. Dili sulti ang pabuhaton, buhat ang pasultion. And so once again, the Cebuanos gave us one of the largest margins in the political history of the province of Cebu. How could the forces of division have forgotten so quickly the lessons of Sugbuak? That one should never underestimate the intelligence of the Cebuanos or doubt their capacity to see through all the insincerity, the empty platitudes, and the hypocrisy. I wish I could say that from this day on, we move forward, but I cannot. We cannot. The bigger part of the task ahead is to go back, to retrace our steps, to arrive at that point where we veered off from the clear and steady path that we had blazed, undo the damage that has been done, and find our way again to number one. Only if we clear the path can we move on to the bigger challenges that we face as a province. A definitive inter-LGU solution to Cebu's worsening traffic, a workable mass transport system from Karkar to Danao, the development of more bulk water supply and distribution systems to bring level 3 water systems to every barangay, solving our garbage problem by developing waste-to-energy facilities, the rehabilitation of our dilapidated provincial and barangay roads, the upgrading of facilities and services of our provincial and district hospitals. These are but a few. So while it is tempting to dwell on the magnitude of our mandate, the gargantuan task that lies ahead, in the words of Adlai Stevenson, and I quote, smothers exaltation and converts vanity into prayer. 6 weeks ago, when I entered this Capitol and climbed the stairs to the governor's office, on my way to this hall to be proclaimed, a flood of memories and emotions overwhelmed me as I ascended. I remembered the long days and the restive nights while we were holed up here and under siege for all of 42 days. I remember that a lot of you who are here tonight were with me then to offer me comfort, prayers, and support, despite the risks, despite the literal obstacles and barricades that you had to go through. I thank you now for the courage of your convictions and for your steadfast loyalty and friendship. I remember someone in particular, someone who is no longer here with us, who, despite her fragile state of health, came every day and every night, without fail, along with my father, climbing the daunting steps to the governor's office to see to it that her daughter had comforting company, had something to eat, and did not lack for allies in that lonely and ultimately losing cause. From my late mother's last ounce of strength, I drew mine. I miss you now more than ever, Mom. May God bless your kind and loving soul. Amidst this flux of memories and emotions, a sudden sense of clarity, closure even, came to me as I walked these halls again. Consider this. The DILG secretary, who was the instigator and implementer of that illegal suspension, has thrice been rejected by the entire nation. First, as vice president, then as president, and here in Cebu, he lost by an overwhelming margin of 1.4 million votes to Rodrigo Roa Duterte. Then very recently, as senator, in Cebu, he landed number 16. And the general, the enforcer, who threatened to bodily remove me from this capital and who unleashed his police forces against us in the 2013 and even 2016 elections, he has been exposed as a narco general by no less than the president himself and has not been seen or heard of since. Finally, when they forced me out of this capital, they installed someone to take my place. By some stroke of fate, we met in the political battlefield in May. The Cebuanos were thus given the choice, the chance to right the wrong that had happened here in December of 2012. And the Cebuanos, with their innate sense of justice and fair play, handed down their verdict conclusively, unquestionably, overwhelmingly. And I am your governor again, humbled by the long, difficult road that has brought me here to this unprecedented and historic fourth term. I would call this a personal vindication were I not mindful of its larger significance for Cebu and the Cebuanos. It is a mandate to work, 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 as we have never before worked, to break the lethargy of the past 6 years, to bring the blessings of good and responsive government to every Cebuano family. On the cusp of the 500th year, half a millennium, of the first Cebuano hero's triumph in Mactan, we are called again to seize this opportunity, no longer of a century, but this opportunity of a millennium, this Cebuano millennium. Here, where Philippine history as we know it began, to bring back Cebu to its rightful place as the #1 province in the country. And we begin today. Kuyog ug uban kaninyo, mga pinalangga kung kaigsunang Sugboanon, ibalik nato ang Sugbo pagka numero 1. Mabuhi ang Sugbo! Mabuhi kitang tanang Sugboanon. Daghan kaayong salamat. May gabi ka natong tanan.